sales, guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Tam Cowan and Darren Jackson here with us on this Tuesday. Delighted that you could join us. Don't forget to share the stream and, of course, follow us on Facebook. And if you hit the red button on our YouTube channel, you'll be with us, joining the football family. Thousands of people every day and week joining the family and watching the programmes Monday to Friday. So thank you to each and every one of you. Of course, the window is closed and Gabriel Antoniazzi, our reporter, sums it all up.
In a transfer window where little money was spent, it was a deadline day of late moves in Scotland. Let's have a look at what happened. Rangers headlined the action as they brought forward the summer pre-contract additions of Aberdeen winger Scott Wright and centre-half Jack Simpson of Bournemouth. 2 in, 2 out, as George Edmondson and Brandon Barker left on loan to Derby and Oxford. Aberdeen completely overhauled their front line with the loan additions of Florian Camberry, Fraser Hornby and Callum Hendry. After Wright's departure and Sam Cosgrove's £2 million sale, Curtis Main and Bruce Anderson also moved on to Shrewsbury and Hamilton Accies until the summer. Ross McCrory's move to Pittodrie was also made permanent. Celtic only brought in one player all window, with right-back John Joe Kenny joining on loan from Everton as Jeremy Frimpong's replacement. Olivier Cham left for Marseille in his native France, with a £4.5 million option to buy the 24-year-old in July. It was also a busy day for Hibs, with Jamie Gullen joining Wraith and Stevie Mallan moving to Yeni Malatyaspor, also with an option to buy in the summer. Their main focus, though, was on keeping Kevin Nisbet, who handed in a transfer request after a £3 million bid was turned down from Birmingham. Graham Alexander got his way as Motherwell extended the deals of Robbie Crawford and Stephen O'Donnell, whilst bringing in Tyler McGlaw, Eddie Nolan and Jordan Roberts. Elsewhere, managerless Kilmarnock added Zech Medley and Brandon Pierrick to their ranks, while St Johnstone scooped up Charlie Gilmore, having left Norwich.
What do you make of that window, Ruffy? Not a lot of money spent, but some interesting players in and out.
Yeah, I thought Aberdeen worked very quickly to get the 3 strikers. Obviously, the other strikers were going out, but I think if we saw Aberdeen, they've been pretty solid at the back. You know, midfield is very, very good. I think Derek McInnes's main problem is getting a consistent goal scorer, and certainly these 3 that he's brought in have got a chance to prove themselves to do that. And I think obviously Derek believes that if any 2 of the 3 of them get into any kind of goal scoring form, it'll be a good end to the season for him. These 3 were the ones that jumped out at me. You know, I didn't expect 2 of them anyway, but good signings for Aberdeen.
Yeah, and Rangers business going quietly and effectively, Darren, about their business with another pre-contract for Nnamdi Offenbor coming on a 4-year contract in the summer. But I think he did the right thing getting Scott Wright in now.
Yes, Peter, I watched the boy Jack Simpson a lot for Blackpool. We look at boys that are not getting a game for high championship, premiership clubs. I've been taking them on loan, giving them experience, and I watched them, and he's excellent. Very, very good player. The only thing concern for me is Eddie Howe kept him there because he didn't want him going on loan. He might have gotten the team, and he didn't. He's only had 35 appearances, and he's 23. That's the only thing that would concern me, but very good player. And Scott Wright, they obviously see something, Peter. I've kind of yet to see it yet. Yes, he's quick, good pace. But 6 goals in 60 games for an Aberdeen team who were second in the league 4 years in a row, then third in the league, isn't too many. And people will say that he's maybe not a natural goal scorer, but when Aberdeen are up there, you should be expecting goals from the forwards and that. So they obviously see something in him and they're happy with the signing. So what am I going to say? But he's not a real exciting one for me. But Jack Simpson is definitely a very good player.
Here's what Rangers manager Stephen Gerrard made of it all.
I think the window was really positive for us in terms of getting the 2 boys done and dusted. I think they'll re-energised the squad. They're really looking forward to getting started. 2 real big talents, obviously in different positions. And three of the boys went out over the last couple of days as well to play valuable minutes for themselves. So
Yeah, seemed fairly happy with that. Of course, Rangers in action tomorrow against St Johnstone. No surprise, it broke last night that Rangers were not going to contest the red card on Morelos. This is what Steven Gerrard had to say about that this morning.
And for Alfredo, I've looked at the incident a lot of times now, and I don't think there's a case for us to defend in this situation. Having said that, that doesn't mean we're pleased with everything that happened in that game or that has happened during this season and previous seasons. Consistency is that. I think that's what every manager wants, a level of consistency, and for every player or every incident, if you like, to be judged in the same way. So we find that level of consistency. I think that will really help the league moving forward.
Yeah, so that's what Steven Gerrard had to say. You can give us your view on that. I think his main point here, Tam, right across the board, is if there's some player who's caught with a stamping offence later on, he wants the same kind of retribution for other players who are guilty of it, not just the big clubs, Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think without mentioning it there, he's obviously having a wee nod towards the Darren McGregor incident, which might not, of course, have been quite as bad or looked as nasty as the challenge from Morelos, but it was still pretty grim. But, I think you need to just take it in the chin. I don't think he's got too much to worry about, Steven Gerrard, now when he's bringing in players, topping up his squad, and he's sitting 20-odd points clear at the top. So a 3-game suspension right now for Alfredo Morelos doesn't seem as if it's too harsh or as if it's in any way going to damage Rangers. And the intriguing thing for me now, Peter, just what would maybe put the cherry on the cake for Rangers this season, if Morelos comes back, certainly in time for the next Celtic game, and is able to score a goal, break his duck in the Old Firm fixture, I think that would just cap off a pretty memorable season for Rangers.
Yeah, what do you make of your own transfer window, your club Motherwell?
You know what, Peter, if any of the guys feature, I'll maybe tell you tomorrow night after we've played Dundee United. I'm never sure. I've certainly never heard any of the guys that have come in. There's always the odd anorak or two within your support. I've checked boys on the Steelmen online message boards, and they seem to know about every player that's ever kicked a ball in British football. Good on them. Graham Alexander is definitely dabbling the sort of market we expected. He's got the expertise, low reaches of English football. A couple of boys coming in there, one for Crewe, one for Northampton, Big Harry Smith. But no, I think it always alarms me, Peter. I know it's the way of the world now, but the thing about loan signings, which means it's always difficult to get excited about, is that if any of these guys that we have on loan, you're only hoping that they're going to be good, but no too good. Because if they're too good, you imagine they'll go immediately straight back to their parent club, who can maybe sell them on or whatever. So, I'm always a wee bit in two minds about loan signings. But you never know. We might have somebody in there who ultimately, and that's what it's all about now this season for Motherwell, help keep us up.
Yeah, I saw Roberts a couple of times for the Jambos, Darren. I thought he looked quite useful on the flank. I think he's got a trick.
Yeah, I think he's okay, but obviously they've brought a winger in from Ireland who's meant to be excellent, Peter, and obviously they've brought Mackay Stephen in as well. So Ginnelly looks as though he's out for the season. So I don't think he was going to play there. So it's a good signing. But I totally get where Tam's coming from. But Tam, you want him to do exceptionally well and go back to his club. And he might actually, if he goes back and the manager says, well, I'm still not sure if you're going to, he might want to come back again. He might have enjoyed it that much. So I think when your loan signings to come, you want them to do really well, enjoy the place, and hopefully they want to come back.
I absolutely agree with you, Darren. And if I can just chuck in an extra point, I'm still looking for an answer to this. Brought it up on the radio on Saturday and didn't get one. With so many loan deals going on in football now and players coming and going, it's been happening for a long number of years. Do you guys think, and these are all big football fans, we've got two former professionals on the team here, do you think that we've seen the end of the testimonial match? Can you see players getting one of those for now on? I think it's gone.
Oh, that's a good shout, but I think there will be the odd one or two that has that potential to get a testimonial. I would suggest to you, Roughie, if fans were in, maybe even a Callum McGregor. But I do think there's the odd one or two.
Yeah, I think you're looking at clubs like St Johnstone, who players generally hang about there for a wee while because they enjoy the environment. I would say players maybe in Aberdeen like Considine. But you're right, Tam's right, few and far between. In my era, there was guys getting testimonials nearly every year, at different clubs because the contracts that we signed back there were generally like the 6-year contract. And then if you get an offer another one, that nearly it used to be 10 years. 10 years was the sort of the stay that you used to have before you got one. So no, there'll be far less players coming into that category.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a damn
Murray Davidson, Peter.
Murray Davidson is certainly worthy of it as well. Sometimes
the one that I feel. The one that I feel sorry for, Peter, because he might have been due one when Jim McAllister of Greenock Morton bowed out at the weekend. 361 appearances for his club. Couldn't get the accolade for the crowd, of course, because there was no crowd there. He couldn't get down the wee lap of honour to wave goodbye. And of course, if he was due one, I don't know how many years 361 appearances equates to, but it couldn't be a kick in the backside of enough years for a testimonial. And of course, if they said, right, we'll give you a testimonial next week, that would be a damp squib because you couldn't get any fans in. So, I just wonder if it's something that is kind of dying out, because Peter, and you know the three of them very well, but in the space of, I think it was in the space of 3 years, I was involved with testimonial events for Stephen Craig and Stevie Hamill and then Keith Lasley at Motherwell. That was 3 in quick succession. But I just wonder if maybe that's the end of an era.
Yeah, I still think you'll see the odd one or two, and it's a good point you make about Jim McAllister, because Jim McAllister is our one-to-one guest this week on the podcast, and I hope you'll enjoy my look back at his career. He sat down with me to chat over his career in football and why he's actually got to the point where he said, I'm going to hang up the boots. He's been certainly a Morton favourite without doubt, and he's had a wee spell at Dundee where he won the championship and down there at Blackpool as well. So I think you'll enjoy that. It comes out tomorrow. So fingers crossed, you can tune into the one-to-one on our YouTube, on our podcast, and of course, it'll be out there, just a wee teaser for it on Facebook to show you how you can get to it. And there's also a good interview with Stuart Kettlewell and the Dons legend, Dougie Bell. So we're doing that as a regular feature. Football players and others will be interviewed. Good of Tam to mention that. Testimonials, yeah, whether you get them or not. The best testimonial you've ever been to, Tam?
I was too young for it, Peter, and I wish somebody out there, if there's somebody watching and now who's got a grainy old VHS even, I'd love to take it. You may remember as well, maybe even Roughie will too, Joe Wark got a testimonial against the brilliant, and I mean brilliant, West Bromwich Albion team. Starring amongst others Cyril Regis and Laurie Cunningham. I was there. I'm sure West Brom absolutely trounced us. It was something like 7-0 or 7-1. But even though I was only a wee boy, just to see, you remember the impact those two guys had, Laurie Cunningham and Cyril Regis, when you were a kid, watching them on Match of the Day and stuff. To see those guys at Fir Park it was absolutely incredible. But the whole thing's a blur. I was just a kid. I would love to think there was footage out there somewhere. It was a brilliant day.
Yeah, that's a great Laurie. I loved Laurie Cunningham when I was a boy. I thought he was a fantastic player. Great mention. Best. Well, Roughie, have you not had 2 testimonials?
I would have had 2 if it wasn't for Alec Miller, but one. I had one at Thistle for my 14 years of service, and we decided to play a Scotland select versus a Celtic 11, and so I asked the Scottish boys like John Robertson, Joe Wark, I think Andy Gray come up for it, Alan Brazil come up for it, a lot of the Scottish boys for that era. And a boy in the McDonald's Hotel in Glasgow phoned me up and said, Alan, I'd like to put up the Scotland team for the night. And I went, that's fantastic, great. So I told all the boys, to book in, and I'd come round and see them. So they booked in on the Saturday night. The game was on the Sunday. And I said to him, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. But little did I know that James Mortimer had invited them all to 29. So on the Sunday of the game, I went up to see if everything was okay. The first door I went to, John Robertson was lying comatose behind the door. And that just followed in every room that I went into. So, as I say, we played a young Celtic team. There was 15,000 at the game. Some idiot in the committee charged £2 to get in. And we got beat 8-3. As you can imagine, some of them at half time were just, get me off. That's the way it went.
To be fair, Roughie, I don't think 29 was open when you had that testimonial. I just love the way your memory just fits in a restaurant that comes
Well,
in.
It was a James Mortimer invite.
Yeah,
absolutely. It must have been Victoria's probably. Roughie back in the day. But can I ask Peter? Can I ask Darren if any of his 38 clubs have given him a testimonial?
Put them all together, Tam. Listen, the only one, talking about Alec Muller, the only one I've actually played in was Gordon Hunter's, and we played Coventry. We played Coventry, and Ray Wilkins was a guest for Coventry, and Alec Muller pulled me in the next day and just said, Wilkins was brilliant. And he just says, what do you think about signing Wilkins? And I was like, that, are you kidding? Yeah, of course. And we signed him, and he was just special. He was just incredible to play with. He came, I used to fly up a Friday morning, train with us a Friday, play on a Saturday, and he was just... And a lot of Hibs fans, actually, to be truthful, Peter, a lot of Hibs fans used to give Ray a little bit stick because they thought he was actually giving the ball away. But Ray was actually playing it into areas where we should have been. But he was just so far ahead of us. It was just an honour to play. But it was just great.
Yeah, absolutely. Great shout, Wilkins. Ray had a real great session in London with Ray and Alex McLeish. And every time I interviewed him, he was just a brilliant guy. Great player as well. Best testimonial I've been to, Roughie, was... at school, I must admit, I've got to hold my hands up here, Tam. I took a day off school to go and watch Alan Hunter's testimonial, Ipswich against Celtic, and the place was in complete darkness at half-time because a Celtic fan had peed on the generator and blew the floodlights. So the place was in complete darkness for about half an hour until they fixed it out. And they brought him out. And Alan Hunter was a big Northern Ireland internationalist. They brought him out on his shoulders at the end of it. And I think it's to this day one of the best memories he's ever had. And Ipswich, Mariner, Brazil, Trevor Wymark, you name it, Eric Gates, they were there, Murin, Tyson. What a team.
The goalie, Peter, the goalie who saved all the penalties, what was his name? He had a great record. Paul Cooper. Brilliant.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Pat Stanton had a good testimonial.
Yeah.
Pat Stanton's was well turned. It was a Hibs select versus Celtic at Easter Road, and stadium was full because of what the man had done for both clubs. It was a fantastic day. Absolutely jam-packed.
Do you remember the day we had him on the programme, Roughie?
Great. Some of the stories just unbelievable.
You were saying, Tam?
The sad thing is, Peter, by and large, you'll agree with me, because you're all football men, that sometimes in terms of the turnout that they get certain players at testimonials, it's where the world's upside down a wee bit, Ali McCoist or Henrik Larsson would be the first to say they maybe didn't need the money that they might have coined in for a testimonial, whereas when I went to wee Dougie Arnott's testimonial at Motherwell, it was your absolute devotees who were there. You were lucky if it was 1,500 maybe, and it's maybe jobbing professionals, great wee players like Dougie Arnott who didn't make a lot of money out of the game, who could have really done well lucrative testimonial, but alas, it was never going to happen.
Yeah, that's a great point you make. Although the best guy for me, and it just sums him up completely, was Niall Quinn, who gave his testimonial money away to charity.
He put everyone under pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Can you imagine sitting around the testimonial committee table and the boy goes, "I think we should donate everything." What? That'd be
You would. You definitely would. Anyway, well
Well,
done.
hey Peter, I must be right in thinking. Sorry, that is it next year or the year after that Roughie's due his PLZ Soccer testimonial.
Absolutely.
10 years, yeah, it's getting near that.
10 years, and I want to thank you, Tam, you wee rat, for bringing that up. That's fantastic.
If it's as good as my loyalty bonus, then I'm quite happy to wait.
Brilliant. Roughie, if we're out in 10 years, then fantastic. It'll be great. We can all get back together. Listen, I don't want to just kind of flatten the whole programme, but just a little bit of news has come through, and it's a bit of sad news in COVID and the whole situation. And it's nothing really to do with football, but I think it's well worthy of a mention for the whole nation. His captain, Sir Tom Moore, has died at the age of 100. And what an inspiration that man was. And I'm sure everybody would echo my sentiments of condolences to his family and his friends. And if you're thinking about a man who served his country with distinction and then just come up with just a simple thing to try and raise money. I think he was trying to raise £1,000 and he ended up raising over 30 million. It's not football, but it's certainly, the ultimate human. It's really sad. But anyway, Sir Captain Tom Moore, rest in peace. Just picked that up there on our feed. You were talking about a transfer window. Darren, I can't believe this one. Olivier Ntcham, Marseille can't get a plane out. Suddenly they do the deal. Andres Villas-Boas gets up in the morning and says, wait a minute, I didn't want him. Who signed him? And then all of a sudden, Andres Villas-Boas releases a statement. This is what he had to say. I've resigned because I don't agree with the sporting policy of the club. I said no to the signing of Olivier Ntcham. He wasn't on our list. I had nothing to do with this decision. Ntcham is a player I said no to. I was not aware he'd signed. I learned it in the press this morning when I woke up. I'm waiting for a response from management, and if it's no, we'll keep going. I don't want any money. I just want to leave. I want to be clear with you. This has nothing to do with weekend incidents. It's just in relation to what I want on the sporting aspects, and it clearly wasn't understood. So he was waiting for a response from Marseille to that, Darren, and they responded. They've sacked him.
Incredible. Listen, Peter, it's happening a lot now. I'm involved. I'm a scout involved in recruitment. And yes, the people working in the background, the head of recruitment, sporting directors, scouts, you're watching games. Like I'm watching games all the time, especially leading up to transfer windows and trying to get players in and all that. But at the end of the day, Peter, I always think the manager should have the last say. The manager can't look at, there's no way the manager can look at every player. That's why you have a recruitment team and you put players to him and he says yes and he says no. And there might be players, by the way, there's players that I've liked that the managers said no to and all that. But that's football. That's opinions. But I always believe the manager should have the final say. And in this instance, he's obviously not. And he says, I don't want any money. I think when you've had a couple of payoffs like he's had, I don't think you probably need it. But out of respect for himself, they've sacked him, but he's had his say. And I think it's wrong what's happened.
Yeah, strangely enough, there are a greater percentage of managers, Roughie, who do get the chance to decide the final call on transfers, which I think is only right and proper. But let's be honest about it. There are some clubs that operate a situation where they decide who comes in, whether there's another interest in why they decide it. I don't want to go down that road, but they decide who comes in and they tell the coach, here are the players, you coach them. I mean, that's something that I think is evident, Darren, on a number of occasions. You can't say it doesn't happen. It happens.
He said, of course. Yeah, listen, of course it happens. But as long as sometimes that's why it's not manager, it's coach. We will sign the players. Well, you tell us your philosophy. You tell us the way you want to play. We'll sit down. and we will buy players that will fit into your structure, your team. Now that's fine if they're looking for a number 9, a sharp, quick, smaller number 9. Well, they identify him, they give him to the manager. That's fine. The manager gets to coach him. But if that's not what you think's meant to happen, if you've meant to have the last say, and then that's happened, what's happened yesterday, it's not right, Peter. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, Craig Jack has just come on and said to us, is that how you get stuck with the panel today, Peter? I mean, that's scathing, Tam. I mean, Craig needs to have a long, hard look at himself. That's just uncharitable.
That's awful. That's awful. No, you keep it going. I like when folk get ripped right into you. That's the only way to do it. They date on here, they date in the radio, they even date in the radio to the extent that on Sunday somebody tried to burn down the BBC, as you may have seen, Peter, while we were in the building.
You actually brought up a very good point there, and I think it's something which will affect football, but I'm glad you brought it up. Although you talk about it, and it was a serious situation where the building was on fire, and obviously nobody was harmed, which was great. But the fallout from that on social media, some of the comments around that fire were despicable. Some of the comments, as we know constantly, and I've had a right good week of it. Some of the comments from people are despicable, and I know players, and show racism the red card, and players right across England and across the UK and beyond are now looking for legislation from the government to force social media companies to make sure that anybody who has an account is identified, you can source them, and they have a picture, and it's registered to them. And I think that's going to be the way ahead, Tam. It's the only way to curb this.
Yeah, because the bottom line is, whether it was you as the host of this programme, Roughie, always associated with the World Cup in 1978. Darren Jackson, many clubs. Me, Big Bodjo, is on the radio, in the papers, doing stuff like this. If anybody's ever wanting to have a laugh and a joke with you, then great, bring it on. We're forever, for example, Peter, in the quarter of a century I've done the radio, we still get emails and texts sent in that start with, I bet you won't read this out. And they're invariably the ones that we do read out, because if it's somebody slaughtering us, I love nothing more than that. It's absolutely brilliant. That's all part of the fun, But it's the absolute bam pops, the folk with no identity, no real name, no photo to accompany their comments. You just need to dismiss people like this, and get on with it. And you've seen it. You've been banging this drum for long enough, Peter, on this programme, and some of the rubbish that appears on Facebook compared to the guys and gals that just want to have a wee laugh, a joke and a carry on. That's what it should be about. Particularly at a time like this when we're all missing the football like crazy. Have a laugh, keep the spirits up.
Yeah, and I think the point on this one, Roughie, is if Marcus Rashford is getting racist abuse, the game's a bogey. I mean, what that boy has done this year is incredible.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. But that just shows you the lowest of the low that do that. They're the kind of people you're talking about, and you're right. They should be identified, and I don't know what punishment you can put on them through that. But I think now the police are now becoming more and more aware of it, and I think they have to say is you have to report it to us before we look into it. But there have been lots of incidents, and it's just far below the belt.
Yeah, lots of games to talk about tonight as well. Aberdeen, Livingston, St Mirren against Hibs, Killie against Celtic. And of course, on the Wednesday, we've got Hamilton, Ross County, Motherwell against Dundee United, and Rangers against St Johnstone. And of course, with that Killie Celtic game in mind, we'll get the predictions off the guys. Celtic will continue with Scott Bain in goal, and he's first to accept that there's been nobody able to actually cement that place as the number one keeper at Celtic.
Yeah, possibly, but I think you can't really complain as there's not really been anyone that's standing out every week and making their position their own. So I think there's always been an opportunity for someone to change and come in, and I think we need to do better at when we come in is really grabbing the position, and whatever position it is, and showing what we're capable of.
I like him as a goalkeeper. Is he top drawer Celtic standard? I'm not so sure, but I do like him as a goalkeeper, Roughie. But I'll tell you, if he was the number one, he'd never really get any great confidence built up because, as you know, Roughie, if you're a half-decent goalkeeper, you quite like a half-decent back four in front of you.
Yeah, I've already done my piece to the media about the other goalkeeper circumstances, and you're right. No settled left back, no settled right back. You wouldn't know what centre half's going to be in front of you until the team's read out. And you're perfectly right. You look at the strength of most teams, it's the back four and the goalkeeper, and then you build on that. But for me, I remember his first game he came in, I think it was against Rangers, wasn't it? And he was the star man at Ibrox. And he was unfortunate because he was just volleyed right out of contention because of the big signing. I don't remember him ever getting through a bad spell in the time he was at Celtic. I think he was reasonable. I don't think he was exceptional like Craig Gordon or any of the other keepers before him, but it wasn't as bad as unfortunately the boy who came in. So you'll feel he's got something to prove, because I thought he was dropped very, very quickly because it was a big signing and a big money. So it might be the incentive for him to go in and show everybody what he can do.
He was always going to play second fiddle, Darren, to Fraser Forster. I mean, Forster, I think, set the bar up here, and anything that fell below that has just been, dismissed.
Well, he was always going to play second fiddle to Craig Gordon as well, Peter. And Craig Gordon was sensational for me. I mean, I think Forster came back a far better keeper than when he went down there. First time around, Roughie will tell you more than me about goalkeepers. I only went in goals once at Celtic Park, but I wasn't that good. So, Fraser Forster, I thought, came back a far better keeper. More came for things, was bigger in his goals, shot stopping was brilliant. But for me, Craig Gordon was sensational, and I think they need someone of that stature for Celtic. But as you say, we talk about how well Rangers have done. Four out the back five. The goalkeeper, Tavernier, Goldson and Barisic have played all season, and when you've got that consistency, it helps not to lose goals. They've been exceptional. They've been brilliant this year. But when you're swapping things about and you've had three goalkeepers in this year, it's just a recipe for disaster, I think.
Yeah, well, Jim Goodwin exploited Celtic's weaknesses at the weekend. James Fowler would love to do that at Rugby Park.
Celtic are going through a little bit of a tough period just now. I think when you look at the players that they've got, though, it's still a very strong squad and a very strong group of players that will be coming up against. But obviously we've come off the back of a disappointing result ourselves on Saturday, so we're focused on us, but we know there is an opportunity there if we play to our maximum, because we want to make Kilmarnock and Rugby Park not a nice place to come for any team. So as I say, once we can rally the troops and hopefully get a positive reaction on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-1 on this one, Roughie.
No, I'm going to stick that Celtic will get a win, and I'm going to go Celtic 2-0.
Yeah, Darren?
Oh, sorry, I think I went 2-0. Whatever I text you.
Right, okay. And a big thank you to all the viewers who are desperate tonight. I already said in the text. Yeah, and so am I. Okay, Darren?
Well, I'll go with Roughie, Peter. I think it'll be 2-0. Both teams are going through a sticky spell just now, obviously. Kilmarnock, I had a lot of respect for. I didn't know Alec Dyer, but I liked him. He was a good guy. He looked to put everything into it, and it just unfortunately didn't work out. But I'm going to go Celtic 2-0.
Tam?
Only because it's an interim manager that Kilmarnock have got, and James Fowler, and therefore the old adage about having the bounce of a new manager, a new face in the dugout. Could it be Stevie Robinson? Could it be Tommy Wright? Neil McCann's been quoted as well. We don't know. But because they don't have a new manager in, and therefore there won't be a bounce, I could see this actually being a very drab 0-0 draw, Peter.
Okay. I wonder, Roughie, whether Kevin Nisbet was well advised on putting out there a transfer request. He's only just in the door at Hibernian, and suddenly he wanted to try and force a move out to Birmingham. That won't sit well with the Hibs fans.
Oh, he's very fortunate there's no Hibs fans in the ground because if there was Hibs fans in the ground, he would be getting pelters. It's just the wrong attitude. I think it's another boy being ill-advised. I'm only guessing. He's been ill-advised by other people, agent or whoever, and he obviously knows what was down the road. He knows the financial differences and the chance to play down there. But he'll have to get his head around it now. He's only got another like 3-4 months to the end of the season. So if these people are interested in him and he starts scoring goals, then they'll come back. And that's what he's got to be saying to himself. But I definitely think it was the wrong attitude to fire in a transfer request. I don't know what good that did at all.
Oh, it was a strange one. Did it catch you by surprise, Darren?
The price did, Peter, yes. I'm absolutely flabbergasted that they turned down that kind of money. I think he's a good player. But for £3 million, and I hope it's not a one that a Scott McKenna one that Villa bid $7 million and they don't take it. I was very surprised, but Peter, I was kind of in the same position myself when I was at Hibs and Celtic came in and they knocked it back. They were down the bottom of the league. They just said at the time they couldn't afford to take the offer because of the position we're in. And I'm not saying I was a good guy, but I actually just did get on with it. The club came to me and gave me a new contract, which was great, and I just got on with it. Thankfully, we survived, and then obviously the transfer happened. But I think sometimes he's probably seen what was on offer down the road, and I'm only surmising. I'm only putting figures on because I know what gets paid down the road. Maybe 10 to 15 grand a week. Maybe a 4.5 year deal. It's life changing, but you just have to. I think you just have to get on with it. They're going well. He obviously believes in himself. He'll score goals, and it might happen at the end of the season for him.
Yeah, Tam, I'm hearing that Stevie Mallon, he's on loan at the moment, but if he gets a permanent deal, there's a potential for a permanent move, to Turkey. Yeni Malatyaspor are the team that he's joined. Then he'll be heavily weighed in. The figures that I'm looking at would settle him and square him up for more than the next few years.
Absolutely, and that clearly would have been the case with Kevin Nisbet if he'd gone down to Birmingham. But you would imagine now that Kevin Nisbet, just for a wee bit of balance here, because he seems to be getting a wee bit of a hard time on the programme here now. For balance, can I just say that if Hibs were wanting to hold out for £3 million, I would be hoping that Kevin Nisbet or Kevin Nisbet's agent will now be battering down Ron Gordon's door and saying, right, does that mean you're going to start paying me the wages of a £3 million player? But I still, ultimately, I can only speak as a supporter myself. And if I was a Hibs fan, and I've got a few pals that are Hibs fans, I think they'll realise that he's made a boo-boo by coming out and putting in the transfer request and all the rest of it. And you're right, if we did have crowds inside the grounds now, I'm sure the Hibs fans would make their voices heard. But no other point I would make on this, Peter. Hibs, if you recall, they get absolutely vilified in certain quarters at the time when they paid £250,000 for Kevin Nisbet from Dunfermline, as this was at a time when they had laid off some staff at Easter Road, some low-paid staff, you would need to imagine. And, as much as they get the criticism then, Hibs at the time, I can't remember their exact quote, but they were saying this was for the whole good of the club looking forward, how you've still got to invest in players. So they've kind of done that, because it now would appear that if Kevin Nisbet does leave the club, whenever that may be, it's going to be for at least 10 times the money that he brought him in on. So that's great for their business model. So lots of stuff surrounding this story.
Yeah, St Mirren against Hibs. I was impressed with St Mirren at the weekend. I thought they battled well. They played some lovely football as well. And I think Jim Goodwin is building a good side there. I'm going 1-1 on this one, Tam.
I quite fancy St Mirren as well. They obviously their tails up winning it. As much as everybody seems to think that Celtic are done this season, their league's over, and they can't get up for any sort of game. That's still a huge result for St Mirren to go there. It's heartbreaking as well, Peter, the fact their fans couldn't be there for obvious reasons. When you go to somewhere like Parkhead or Ibrox, in this case Celtic Park, and chalk up your first victory in 31 years in that stadium, and the fans aren't in the ground to see it. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And again, I say it every week, it's why we've all got to keep playing with the rules and try to get back into the games as soon as possible. But I'll certainly go for a narrow St Mirren victory tonight, 1-0.
Yeah, Jack Ross, well impressed with Jim Goodwin.
Well, first of all, I think the result of the weekend is a significant one in terms of the history of the club. If you look at teams don't win regularly at Ibrox or Parkhead, and I think the number of years that have passed since someone had done it, so that in itself is a terrific achievement for Jim and his players. I think he's put together a squad that I think you believe should be highly competitive in this league, and I think they've shown that in the main this season.
Yeah, Darren, what are you going for?
I'm going for 2-2. I think I was up at Tannadice on Saturday, and Hibs were just way better than Dundee United. Had just better players in certain positions. I think Jackson Irvine and Cadden will be brilliant signings for them. Jackson Irvine set up 2 of the goals, but just in the middle of the park, his energy and Cadden, both of them up and down the pitch, and I think their confidence will be sky high, as will St Mirren. They're at home, but I just think it'll be a really good game, and I'm going for 2-2.
Yeah, Roughie, can you get John Nelms to send me the prediction you've got on the WhatsApp group? What was it?
I don't know if he's got a new fact sheet, but I'm the same as you two. I think both teams will go into this game with a lot of confidence, and I can't split them either. And I'm going to go for the same as you, Peter. I'm going to go 1 each.
Okay.
Just to confirm,
here's a good line.
I did go Celtic 2-1.
Yeah.
2-1.
Okay. Sorry about that, Roughie. 2-1. Did I not ask you? I'm sorry about that, Roughie. Stuart McDonald says Alan Snedden's testimonial. Kenny Dalglish played 45 minutes for Hibs. It was class. What a nice Alan Snedden. He was a good lad. I think we interviewed him quite a few years ago on the programme. You played alongside him, Roughie. Did you play in that game?
Yes, I played in that game. Yep, I was there.
Yep.
Snoddy on one side and Eric Shadler on the other side were the Hibs 2 fullbacks with Sloop in the middle, directing everybody. All the way Sloop could direct anybody. But no, Snoddy was excellent. Right, hard working fullback, overlapping fullback, and I thought he did well with Celtic as well when he was at Celtic.
Yeah, and for the benefit of our younger viewers, Sloop is John Blackley, who was absolutely top drawer. If you are a Hibs aficionado and you're of a certain age, John Blackley, magnificent. Anyway, Aberdeen against Livingston. Again, if we're talking about can't split them, Livy, Tam, if David Martindale phoned me up and says here's the 6 numbers for the lottery, I'd stick a quid on it.
Aye, no, he's done absolutely brilliantly. It's been incredible, but it's hard to get up for this game. It seems that Aberdeen play Livy about 3 times a week now, Peter. But I can see Livy's run keeping going. Their undefeated run, which has been quite incredible. But I wonder if Aberdeen will be buoyed by that wee trio of signings that they've made. So I think I would go with a score draw with this one. I'm 1 each Aberdeen Livy.
Yeah, absolutely. I do try and respond to as many of the messages that come in on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter as well. I will read out John Cusick's because I think it's worthy of it, Roughie. Peter, what do you think about Rangers fans raising £52,000 for the Red Arrows to do a fly past when Rangers win the league? Well, I think that's going to be a fantastic occasion, Roughie. I just hope the Red Arrows keep their social distance when we're flying above Ibrox when it happens. They've got to follow protocol.
Yeah, it sounds a great idea, but I think it's over so quickly, and it seems a lot of money, when there are other things you could be spending it on, particularly when there's no fans in the stadium. So what would it be finishing, 2 seconds?
Well, 52 grand's a lot of money, isn't it?
on the social distancing, Peter, I mean, the Red Arrows are good, but I can assure you they're still more than 2 metres apart when they do that.
Are you sure?
Are you sure? They're not that good.
Yeah, we've got to be rigid on this one. Anyway, Jock, thanks for that. It's a good point. It's a good wee bit of banter because it's not too far away. I think maybe 8 or 9 games and it could be all over. And Rangers will be champions. So we've given the predictions there. Hamilton Accies against Ross County, Motherwell Dundee United, and Rangers against St Johnstone.
Nope, I never did. Aberdeen 2-0.
Oh. I'm going Aberdeen 2-1. I worked with Hornby at the Scotland 19s. Talented boy. He just needs to play games. I think he'll do exceptionally well up there. And Canberra obviously can't play tonight. I think Aberdeen did very well in the transfer window. I think they're good players. Cosgrove and Wright and that were good players that went out, but I think they brought 3 good players in.
Yeah, just on the Scott Wright affair, I think it was a good move. This is what Scott Wright had to say about getting out of Aberdeen and joining up now.
Yeah, there was always going to be a bit of backlash. I kind of expected that with the decision. But as I said, it was a decision I felt like I had to make. And when I spoke to the management and the staff at Rangers, I was really excited to be coming here and to be joining such a massive club. And as I said, I feel they're definitely going to be taking me to the next level. And I'm looking forward to working with all the staff here. Obviously, I've only been in not long this morning, but I just can't wait to get started.
Yeah, good luck to the boy. I think it was, there's no fans in there, but the last thing you want is it just to be prolonged, Roughie. Just get him in. I always thought Stephen Gerrard would ask the Rangers board just to push the envelope a wee bit and get him in quickly.
Yeah, I think the McCrory deal had a lot to do with that. I think Derek definitely wanted the boy permanently. Obviously, there'd be to and froing, financial the way it went, and but I think both teams have got the player that they wanted, and I'm sure the boy will be absolutely delighted. Aberdeen are a really well-run club, but when you walk in the door at Rangers or Ibrox, it's a different lifestyle. It's your whole life changes. Obviously, your football has to change as well. You've got to come up with a consistency level that you probably didn't have for the club that you left. So, no, he's got a lot to prove. I think Darren hit it in the head. He's shown a lot, but not a lot enough. But going to Rangers, it might just happen for him. It might be there's more in there that we haven't seen. We'll just have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, Tam, I was going to give you a thought on this because you know well how it works at Motherwell when they're trying to bring talent through, and when they get there, they sell them on, and then they keep the conveyor belt going and maybe pluck the odd one or two that can help the youngsters. I just wonder, Darren was mentioning there that he was amazed that Hibs didn't take the money. I was amazed too, because if they'd taken near to £3 million, they could have bought 2 or 3 players and made a right push for second place.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, what you would argue, and it's the same I would argue at Motherwell, Peter, now you mention it, if we get £3 million in right now for a player, there's absolutely no way that money is going to be handed to the manager to bring in a couple of players. That's just not on. In recent years, when Stevie Robinson was there and we get the odd decent bit of transfer money in, I know Stevie would have been delighted if he was given just a smidgen of that money to try and dabble in the transfer market himself. And it was really only if it freed up some money to pay the wages of a freebie or a loan deal player that came in. So I just wonder if Hibs are in the same boat. Sadly, in this transfer market seems to sum it up. The days of clubs spending big bucks has gone. And I don't know if it was on this programme, Peter, last week or the week before, we mentioned about Thomas Cherney hanging up his boots at Aberdeen. I think he's wanting to be a PE teacher. And when there was the reports of it in the press and you read it, what I'd completely forgotten about is that Hamilton Accies, I repeat, Hamilton Accies paid £185,000 for him to bring him to South Lanarkshire. Now, that's incredible. You'll never see Hamilton spend that sort of money in the transfer market again. So, every penny is a prisoner at every club, particularly just now.
But Tam, that's where you have a recruitment team. Hibs would have known that teams were interested in Kevin Nisbet, so they're looking ahead. So there's no way Kevin Nisbet costs 250 grand. There's no way in 6 months he's worth 3 million. He's worth 3 million. Well, if someone's going to pay 3 million, he's worth 3 million. But so if you go out and spend $500,000, you're going to get is probably just as good a player, because 6 months ago he was worth 250 grand. So that's where you do your recruitment, and you have a player saying, you identify him and think, right, if Kevin Nisbet does go, we can bring him in right away.
But the other thing as well, Peter, that there are well-run clubs in that Premier League, like Motherwell, like Hibs, who maybe don't need the money as some as the others, and they've got that 1.6 million that they can take, and they don't have to pay it back for 20 years. So there'll be a lot of them saying, well, we've got that coming. No, why do we need to sell our player when we think we can get more for them?
Yeah, I just thought maybe 2 or 3 other players could really make the push for them, because Aberdeen and Hibs will never have a better chance. I think Aberdeen had one of the best chances to win the league when Ronnie Dyler was the manager of Celtic, and they'll never have a better chance now to get second with Celtic in the way they're playing at the moment. There's a real opportunity if they had a wee bit of ambition on it.
Peter, with Irvine and Cadden, I think they've done that. I mean, I think they've really pushed on, especially with Jackson Irvine. And Tam will know. I don't know, Tam, if you're a fan of Cadden, but I thought he'd play right back, right wing back, play centre mid. I think Cadden was a really good player, and so I think they made 2 very, very good signings.
He was brilliant at Motherwell. A big loss when he went away. You're right. Very, very versatile player. Very hard working, and a real fan's favourite, Darren. And I agree with Peter there as well, Peter, because of course if any of the clubs, Hibs or Aberdeen, did speculate to accumulate this season of all seasons, and if they were able to pip Celtic for second, what it means, of course, is Champions League football, or at the very least, of course, Champions League a qualifier. And you would maybe argue that the money that could be gleaned from that would make up for any cash that they'd forked on the players to get them there in the first place. So, very interesting. I still think Celtic will be a clear second, though, Peter. I think we're all getting a wee bit carried away with our quite dramatic dip in form since the turn of the year.
You think? Okay. Just before we go, I'm going to get you guys your predictions on the last 3 games. But I got to ask you this, Roughie, Dave Balfour obviously loves watching the show and loves your pronunciation of all footballers across the globe. He loves the way you've just mastered it now, Roughie, that if you don't really get it, you just fire in a few extra words, a few vowels and a consonant. I was wondering if you've come across the new girl that signed for Celtic yesterday from Napoli, which I think is fantastic. And I kid you not, Roughie, her name is Jacinta Galabadarachi. And she has 23 letters in her name. And the only person who has got 23 letters in their name that's played in Scottish football that's equalled that, I wonder if you know, Roughie.
I would go for Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink.
Yes, Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. And Jacinta Galabadarachi, good luck in Scottish football. And let's hope that somebody does have that on the back of their jersey, because it's going to be worth a fortune.
Yeah, that's what, Peter, you're hoping that they are going to be a star because you want the fans, because it's £1 a letter. So you want the fans to buy the strips and do the name on the back.
Absolutely you do. Yeah, I mean, fantastic. Well done to her. Let's hope she has a good career. Hamilton Accies, Ross County. It's a tough one, this one. I'm going to go Accies to win it by a 0-0.
Now this is the game that Accies generally win, you know, and get them out of the pressure pot that they've been in all season. So I'm going to go Accies as well. I'm going to go Accies 2-1.
Right, Tam?
There are certain games, Peter, in this world that seem to have 0-0 written all over them, and this is one of them. This is one of them. I know, but it doesn't work out that way, or else I wouldn't be sitting here doing this. I'd be in Barbados or something. But yeah, Hamilton Ross County does have a look at 0-0, but I will enjoy it. I'm hoping they maybe can fire that on it. But it sounds like the sort of game that sometimes you get on BBC Alapa and the Gaelic channel. It's got that written all over it as well. If I can watch that even as a delayed live recording, because when there's no fans inside the grounds, big Yogi Hughes is a breath of fresh air, unless, of course, you're easily offended by foul language. The big man has been magnificent to listen to. He's got a voice like a foghorn, as we all know, and it's been great ever since he came back at Ross County. Listening out when you're watching their games on the telly for Big Yogi getting it loudy. So I don't think he'll have much to shout about, though, in that game. As I say, that has got to look at a 0-0. In fact, Roughie, I've not put that bet on for months now. I think it was you boys that put me off it, but I'm getting a tank on that tomorrow night. Hamilton 0, Ross County 0.
Yeah. Darren, I wouldn't even watch that game if it was delayed and in German.
Well, Peter, it's the partnership. It's a partnership in the dugout, the two managers, Yogi and Chipper. So
yeah, brilliant.
I'm sure there'll be a bit of banter between them and all that. I'm going to go 1-0. I think it'll be tight. I'll probably not be the best, but I'm going to go 1-0. But as Tam said, if you could have the microphone near both the dugouts, I'm sure you'll get a bit comedy.
Yeah, like Chipper, love Yogi as well. But remember, it's a joke, by the way. I mean, Hamilton and Ross County will be a great game. Now, the next one, Motherwell Dundee United, you're not going 0-0 with that, are you?
No. And we knew you were only kidding, Peter, because we know you watch a lot of German stuff at home of an evening. The neighbours know it. The police know it. But Motherwell Dundee United, yeah, you know my long-held belief, Peter, that whenever a club needs a result, whenever a goalie needs a shutout, whenever a striker needs a goal, they always seem to play Motherwell next. And lo and behold, here we go. It's Motherwell facing Dundee United, who, you know, have been a wee bit of pressure on Mickey Mellon in recent weeks. That absolute thumping, quite astonishing, really, the 5-1. At home to St Mirren, who gave them a toasting. But you know, I'm quietly impressed so far by Graham Alexander, and I think we can sneak this 2-1 Motherwell.
I agree with you, Tam. I'm going 2-1, Roughie.
Yeah, I think they've dropped out of the top 6, Dundee United, for a reason. So I'm going to go Motherwell 2-0.
Darren?
Yeah, I'm going to go Motherwell. I saw, as I said, I was up at Tannadice, and after the 5-1, they were poor. Their confidence looked shattered. They're just looking to be nothing about them. And Motherwell being at home, bringing in the new signings that will give them a boost. I'm going to go 2-1 Motherwell.
And last but by no means least, I've got Rangers to win 3-0 against St Johnstone. I just think at this moment they're unstoppable.
Yeah, I'll go. I think the same, Peter. I was going to say 3-0. St Johnstone have done great. I think Callum's put a great squad together. Another boy who I had at the 19s, Charlie Gilmore, signed this week. Great talent. Great midfield player. Will boost the squad. But I think Rangers are flying, especially at home. They're so confident. They're scoring goals. They're not conceding goals. And I'm going to go 3-0, Peter.
Yeah, quite a popular one on here is 4-0. A lot of Rangers fans, James Skeen mentioning it as well. A lot of people think 4-0. Gordon McFadden, John McLachlan as well, going for 4-0. Roughie, what are you going for?
I probably went 4-0 maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
Well, I think St Johnstone have got their act together a wee bit, so I'm going to go 2-0.
2-0. Oh, they've really got their act together. So they're still going to lose. Okay. I'm going to give a mention to Robin Hockenhull, who called us at PLZ headquarters and just said that he loves the show, watches it Monday to Friday, and it's kept him going through these difficult times. It's always nice to get a compliment. We get a few who give us pelters. And as Tam mentioned, we love pelters as well because, you know, you've got to be able to have a joke. You've got to be able to not be that precious that you can't get a good kicking off people. But as long as it's not abusive, we'll try and read as many of them out as possible. Anyway, on that note, hopefully you've enjoyed the show today. Keep up up to date with all the news in Scottish football, English, European and world by going to our website, www.plzsoccer.com. But we'd love you to share the stream and also to follow us on our Facebook page, PLZ Soccer, and on our Twitter. And if you've got that red button there on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe from Tam, from Darren, Roughie, and myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.